In Search of Knowledge, Past, Present, and Future is a series of unique programs that are designed to show our history as a living history rather than just a list of names and facts about people in the past. It is a Black history lesson, a vocational tool to interest people in various occupations, and a mini museum containing books, artifacts, and photos of notable Blacks, bringing an original art exhibit directly to the classroom. Welcome to In Search of Knowledge. Last month, my guests were Tara Aldrich, CEO and founder of Educators on Call, and Mary May, CEO of Butterfly Love. If you missed their interviews, they are available on PhillyCam's website and YouTube on the B. Joyner channel. Tonight I'm going to be talking to my guests together because their fields of education and mental health impact our communities in so many ways. Tara and Mary, welcome to In Search of Knowledge.
Thank you.
With this new administration determined to reduce, if not completely stop funding for many organizations that are vital to our communities, what are the top issues, Tara, for you in the field of education, and Mary, you in the field of mental health, that we need to address?
So we go from the mental health field as far as the things that may be cut. If they are to cut healthcare, then that's going to impact the social and emotional wellness of everyone that as we exist in using either medical and or mental health, that impacts our ability to sustain just everyday conversations and health. Because if you have asthma and you need to go to school, or you have a mental health disorder and you need to go to school with your medication, both are impacted by decisions that healthcare may be impacted by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Tara?
And then with the new Secretary of Education in place, and the discussion surrounding cutting funding to public schools and increasing the voucher system, which is not beneficial to everyone because you have to have money still to use a voucher. And we are well aware that there are families all across our country that don't have enough money to send their child to an alternative school. No matter the fact that there may be some funds to support it, there's not enough money to go around. So the public school as we know it can be in jeopardy.
I think one of the facts...
And overcrowded.
Right. As they are already.
As they are already.
Yeah, because I think one of the facts that I learned that I was surprised at, if you go to a charter school and you don't make it, those funds don't transfer back with you to the public school. They will remain with the charter school. Is that part of the reason why we're having such a battle over charter schools?
I think part of the issue with charter school funding is because there's still different things that go on with different schools. We're talking about special education students and the funds that do follow them when they move around. There are certain schools that are neighborhood schools where they don't have the opportunity to remove students that fit within the vision and mission of the schools. A lot of people believe that a charter school is just like a private organization that can kick out students that don't behave well, or they're just collecting funds on these students, and it really isn't how it operates. So there are different types of charters, there are different types of programs, and if the student is there, of course the funding should be there for that student. Why not? But if a student leaves, it depends on what type of student we're referring to. The funding may or may not go with that student.
And Mary, for you, with the cutting of funds for something like mental health, how does that happen with a charter school versus a public school?
So from the same funds that Tara was just mentioning as far as the Title I, Title I funding for charter schools as well as public schools is how they fund the, I'm going to say for the purpose of this conversation, auxiliary services that someone like myself would provide. That would be the counseling groups, that would be counseling, that would be resources to parents, resources to the children. All of that comes from that Title I basket of funds that is constantly cut, especially from a charter school perspective. That's usually the first part of their budget that is targeted the first.
Okay. One of the things that was very clear to me from our conversation last month was that you are both passionate about youth. Why are you so passionate about our youth?
I think I always have been. In retrospect, as a young girl, I was always that person that looked out for the people younger than myself in my neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood that was very community based, so I was blessed in that, having that experience, that I had friends that were older than I that looked out for me, but also had younger friends that I looked out for in my community. And I was always that big sister to somebody. I was always looking out for somebody or standing up for somebody. I was always the one that stood up for the underdog or for the kid that was a little different in school. I didn't like to see them getting bullied or teased, and I think a part of that is because my mother was a special education teacher, and so I had the opportunity to go into classrooms with her when I didn't have school, and see the students that maybe struggled or were different. They were all housed in the same classroom, and to see how she was very caring and passionate about them, and so I kind of developed that same heart for young people.
And Mary?
I have always been the mediator. Kind of like what Tara is saying. I've always been the mediator to ensure like the hospitality though. Like to make sure that they had everything they needed, giving them a tour when they were like coming new to the school and making sure they knew how to get around everywhere, knowing who the people were. And that was pretty much from me growing up in the Midwest. When I moved to the East Coast and finished out my high school in the Maryland area, I kind of fell back from that because then I was that unique fit into the community because I represented the Midwest versus the East Coast. But that gift of hospitality, I always wanted people to feel comfortable in my presence or in the space that they were supposed to be in.
So having that kind of looking out for each other in some ways is missing from our school, and I think that's where the bullying comes up so much. Can both of you talk just a little bit about your view of it for your field of education of mental health, about the impact of bullying and what we can do to try to prevent that, as at least reduce it? We may not be able to remove it completely because we know that kids are kids and they're always going to be picking on each other, but when it gets to the point that you're committing suicide, that's a danger, and that's something that we need to address. So how would you suggest we address the issue of bullying?
Well, I think a part of it, or most of it, still starts at home. Kids do tease each other, but there's a different level of teasing when it becomes very antagonistic and violent, to a point where a person would feel afraid or unsafe. There's playful teasing, maybe picking on one another, but people need to know how to pull back, and that starts at home. Allowing children to treat each other in your kind of way. They may see it in their household where the adults treat each other poorly. Exactly. But when it's addressed, parents can't say, oh, not my child. When they learn that their child has maybe come at someone in a way that made that person feel unsafe, they have to teach their child to say, take responsibility for this, and acknowledge that you took something too far, and learn from those experiences. But you can't just disregard it and brush it, sweep it up under the rug. I've had experiences with my own child being bullied, and have gone to school and have spoken to the administrator and say, look, I'm here and I'm telling you right now, I need this documented, and I want you to understand that my child is being bullied. I will not tolerate this. He's afraid to walk from his school to his home because of the boys that are following him, throwing rocks at him, calling him names, saying all kinds of things. And if you sit here and disregard it, I'm going to the school district building. But what's not going to happen is that my child is so traumatized that he can't come to school. We're not going to do that. You have to speak up. Parents have to advocate for their children when their children are sharing anxiety, and don't disregard that either. But you have to teach your children how to treat people.
Okay. And Mary?
So I want to piggyback on what Tara was saying in regards to the parents need to know that they have a voice in advocating for their children, and that they also have a voice in teaching a child how they should interact with other people. But then also the thing now, as we grow into social media and so forth, parents need to be more active in ensuring that their children have the coping skills that are necessary. That even if someone is saying something, what is the validity of it? Because a lot of times with teens, and the way that they view social media is on how many, they say the buzz, or how many likes do they get, how many people do I see sharing my video and stuff like that. So their perspective and understanding what bullying characteristics, like the triggers that like the antecedents to it becoming out of hand to suicide, they don't recognize that as being impactful. They think that it's just, oh, I'm just sharing this video, not realizing that the individual in the video can be impacted and embarrassed and not feeling great about maybe what they were doing in the video when it was just something that they did maybe at fun at the sleepover. Now you can put it all out, for people to like it. It's a different conversation, and parents need to be aware of what their children are actually doing. And there's so much things that are encoded, but they need to know what their children
There's
are
a
doing.
number of issues that you raised, but let's talk about a couple of them. First of all, how do we get parents to understand that bullying, especially if it's your child that's doing it, is something that needs to be addressed? Because a lot of times the child who's being victimized, that parent is there at the school, but the child who's doing the bullying, their parents don't come. So how can we get them to take this issue seriously?
Well, one of the school districts that I worked at, they had an interesting presentation where they had someone from the police department come out. And it was an evening presentation. I was in a school district, in a suburban district, where parents came out to events in droves.
So that's that parent engagement stuff.
Right, so parent engagement was high. Like, I can't even describe how high. It was ridiculous. Report card night, the halls would be jammed, packed. You couldn't walk the halls, it was so crowded. But the police department came out and did a presentation, and they had visuals of children that have committed suicide and the impact that families had experienced. They had a mother there whose child committed suicide, and just talked about social media and how bullying online and what that looks like, and how posting something about someone and you thinking it's funny, and how it can impact that individual, because now so many people have passed pictures along,
pull it back.
right, or posting things of your body parts, sharing it with someone, thinking they're not going to show it to someone else, and those pictures get passed around. So how to, it showed how to protect themselves, but it also showed the impact on a higher level of what can happen when you treat each other that way, online or face to face.
And Mary?
I think as a society, though, too, we have minimized the importance of the shock, or that if someone is not receiving the, what do I want to say, like the fact that it's impacting a person to the degree that they want to cause harm to themselves or someone else, we have become desensitized, is the word, to that middle ground conversation and saying, okay, let me take responsibility for what I could do about this and make it better. And if that means going to a therapist or a psychiatrist, or having family meeting at home where we try to figure out, okay, what is it about our family schedule and things that we're doing that's causing these things to occur, because we could talk about it maybe in a disenfranchised, communities, but also in schools that people pay for to go to. If they don't get an A on the exam because that's what they were trying to do, we have cases where they've committed suicide as well from the pressures of a bully-like, behavior that said, okay, I had to get an A, but I got a B minus, so.
And sometimes that's family bullying.
And that's family bullying. So it's like it's different levels of bullying, and understanding the different layers of the conversation that needs to be had.
And I think that's important, because as I began to do the parenting training and I began to get educated on what bullying is, I realized I had bullied two of my cousins when I was little, and I went back and apologized, because there's a long-term impact. One remembered, one didn't. And each child handles that differently. So we have to be careful with our parents when we're talking to them. So what advice would you give to a parent to raise a reasonable, responsible adult?
Ooh, gosh.
In this day and age, that could be a whole scroll of stuff.
We can talk about that until next Thursday.
Well, give me at least one thing, because I think a lot of times parents don't understand the impact. I mean, you talked about social media, you talked about phones, but a lot of times what bothers me is I see parents so involved in their phone, just walking a little one to school, that they're not paying attention. And so I've been, I have a blog, parents, please put the cell phone down, because you're so important to your child's life. So what would you recommend that we tell parents to help them understand the importance of their role?
Just to remember that their children are human beings, that they don't own them, but they are responsible for them. And so it is your responsibility to get to know your child, and not every child is the same.
Right. Even within your household.
Right, within the same family, not every child is the same. And so taking the time to get to know them constantly as they are growing from little ones to adults, maintain conversations, spend time together.
Get off the phone.
Get off the phone. Get out of the house.
Do stuff.
Engage.
Yeah,
Shut off the electronics. Spend one-on-one time together if you have multiples, because they want that attention.
They do.
They still need you,
They
even as they get
crave
older.
it.
They still
They
need you.
crave that attention. And I think our parents, and that's why I want Mary to comment on this, I don't think our parents understand how important they are to their child.
And children usually don't know always how to put how they feel into words, so their behaviors may disrupt what it is that they think that is more important to you, so that they can get it, be a positive and or negative attention. And if you only come to school when I get suspended or when there's a parent meeting, then I need to create more of those situations, because then that's when you pay attention to me. That's when you show up. You don't show up when I have a dance recital or when I'm having a gymnastics tournament or something like that. You only show up when it's something negative, but then they would need a mediator to kind of help them. The parents recognize they're so, if we're going to use your example, they're so in their phone that they're missing those opportunities of their child's ability to grow up. And each moment is priceless. Like, you're not going to get those back when they get older.
Absolutely.
And you end up forming how they interact with other people from those younger years. That when they become a teenager, if you didn't correct them just walking up to people and punching them, you started that by saying, oh, that was cute.
Oh, that's so
cute and funny.
Hit him again.
Yeah, hit him again. And then when it's 16 and he getting locked up, you're like, well, I don't understand why they're getting locked up, because you gave permission to that behavior.
And I think that that's something that we need to keep emphasizing, that parents are their child's best role models. And if you're, it's what?
It's a movie. It's a constant movie.
It's a constant movie. And the other thing that I try, and I know both of you do, is you have to understand that once your child goes to school, you aren't the one who knows your child best, because you're not spending all the time with them. That teacher is spending hours every day that you're no longer spending with that child. And the child is changing. It's not the person you first put in that building.
Right.
So how do we get them to understand that?
Who, the parents?
The parents.
One thing that I always told my son is that his teacher is a part of our village now. So with every new school year, this new teacher is a part of our village. She's a part of the team. She is a part of our family. And so mommy's going to communicate with her on a regular basis, or him on a regular basis, to know what's going on at school. I may come up there, randomly to have a conversation. But understand that when things go on at school, I'm going to be aware of it. So it won't be just you're there for those 8 hours and then you come home and mommy is clueless, because that is not how we operate. I need to know that you are conducting yourself in a way that, we as a family, that's our expectation. So just being present, it's just a matter of just being present regularly, getting to know his friends, getting to know who he's talking to, getting to know what's on his phone. There's plenty of times where phones got taken because I saw things that I didn't think were appropriate, or things that got taken off of the phone. And just to understand that, you being here is a privilege. This is my house. And you get to stay here because I love you, but understand that all of the accoutrement that you have.
As the old song says, God bless the child. God bless the child has got his own. This is mine. Go get your own. But in doing that, we're teaching them responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And so I want to go back.
Choices, decision making, all of that.
We could talk about this forever.
Yes, we
You
could.
know,
on my dime
at 30 years
forever.
old.
Right.
That's
Because,
not an option.
you know, one of the things that I try to emphasize to parents is it takes the child, the teacher, and the parent in order to educate the child.
Absolutely.
You cannot do it without all three working together.
Right.
And so we've talked about that, but now I want to kind of switch it just a little bit.
Okay.
You're doing some important work in your businesses, each of you. We were talking about the relationships with parents and children, but you both have businesses designed to help that. How important are relationships to you in your business?
So as far as substitute teachers, it's a challenging perspective when you talk about sending someone out to represent your business, right? So we have company values that we have in place that represent who we are when we are there, that we respect the community, that we are there to serve the children. I'm real big on having our staff understand that this is a service. Yes, you are getting paid for it, but you are there to serve those children while you are there. So you are to treat them with respect at all times. You are to be someone to be respected at all times. And so my substitute teachers are out building relationships when they are in those school buildings. They are building relationships with the administrators. They're building relationships with the other teachers around them, but also with the students they are there for. That's their primary reason for being there.
Now, Mary, when I talked to you in the other interview, I didn't get a chance to ask you, how many staff members do you have? And because of what Tara said about values, do you have company values for your employees?
I do have company values. Most of the staff or individuals who work with me work as a contractor, so I pull them in based on what workshops or series that we're doing. However, they have to be vetted, that they believe in and follow the same values that I do and speak from a culturally competent perspective, that they're not going to go out there and disrespect any individual in which they come into the path, because the metamorphosis of that relationship is that they're representing butterfly love, and I like to be invited back. So
Because if you don't get invited back, you don't get any money and you can't pay your rent.
Exactly. So from the aspect that I do have contractors that are representing me, I try to make sure that if they're not representing the values in my presence, I may go out and I may coach and co-facilitate a couple workshops with them, just so I can ensure that even when I release the wings, that I know that you can carry the torch and keep it going, as opposed to, okay, well, no, you need to move forward and I'm going to facilitate this workshop on my own, because I need the integrity to be consistent as well as culturally competent.
The integrity is everything.
And that's something that we have to instill in our children early.
Yes.
You know, I did a
They're
talk.
entitled more than they have integrity.
You know, I have a course called How Do You Deal with a Spoiled Child, you know, because we are spoiling our children to the point where they think that that's how the world is going to treat them, and they don't understand that they're not. And Tara and I were talking about that off camera, about that importance of letting your child know that they're part of the world. And you got to function in this world, and everybody's not going to treat you that same way, which is why it's important for them to know, go get your own. Because when you got to go get your own.
Yeah, and those are adult learning experiences as well sometimes, that, you know, you can talk about it, but until you are in the midst of it, you don't know. You know, and so it's certain things that as children you want to teach them, but you can't really teach them some of the things. You want to protect them from it while they're younger, but when they do deal with it, you want them to come home and you can talk about it and break it down for them so it makes sense in their minds, that they can rationalize it in a safe space, so they don't lash out and hurt somebody else.
Right. And it's funny because from my perspective, I agree with you, but then I'm also like, well, when do they learn how to make decisions in the absence of the parent, that I can now coach them to say, okay, this is a situation, how would you want them to respond, and then how are we teaching them? Because oftentimes we have expectations for children to respond in a certain way, not paying attention or knowing that they never been taught.
They never had
the opportunity to learn the skill in which you're holding them accountable for, but yet you're going all in on holding them accountable for something that they were never taught.
And that's an important question that I'll try to ask each of my guests, and that's about life skills. What life skills do you have? And this time, Mary, I want to start with you.
Okay.
I define life skills as conflict management, communication skills. So what life skills do you have that are important to you, and especially in the business that you're in?
I would start with coping and healing. Because if you, again, that self-esteem building, the etiquette, the knowing who you are as an individual within whatever space you transfer to, you have to be able to stand tall and be able to meet whatever is presented to you. So for me, if I was to pick just one, I would say the coping skills, because you're always going to be able to heal and bounce back from whatever is thrown your way.
And Tara, life skills?
I would say my strongest life skill is faith. And when I say faith to know that I don't have to operate in a state of fear. Even though I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. I have a plan, but
Right. Life
plans
happens.
change. Right. Life happens. But I have the faith to step out to say I was given this vision, and I know that my faith will allow me to believe that what I need will come to me when it is meant for me to have it. I feel like I'm operating in my purpose. So I don't have any doubt that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I said, everything kind of came together. And so it just made perfect sense. So I think having that instilled in me at a young age to know that you can accomplish anything that you focus on, that you believe in, and to believe in yourself, and to not let other people place doubt and to make you doubt yourself.
Ladies, we could go on forever.
We
and
definitely could. We definitely could.
But I just want to thank you for being a guest on In Search of Knowledge and in sharing the important work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
If we can gather to march 1 million strong, then why can't we gather in small groups to resolve one small problem in our own lives? If we can spend millions of dollars on anything and everything, then why can't we put money aside as individuals or a group to accomplish one small financial goal? If we can put aside our differences and speak to each other without anger or calling each other out of our names, and give love and respect to each other for a few hours while marching, then why can't we come together for a week to work on solving one small problem? When we recognize that we have to begin the most important undertaking in our history of saving ourselves, our children, and our communities, that in order to survive in the 21st century, we have to focus our time and energy on loving ourselves for ourselves, then we are marching more than 1 million strong.